Hi, everybody. You're listening to Celestial Intersections Radio live here on Blog Talk Radio, powered by eastrologer.tv. I'm Ernesto. I'm your host. I hope you guys can hear me right now. We're having some weirdness going on with the stream, so I'm very happy that we're able to get this show live and running for you guys. We'll be live for the next hour or so until about 11 o'clock Arizona time. So I do apologize that we had some issues setting up the stream today. Normally, I log into the studio, you have some people in queue, I can kind of get that all set up. But for whatever reason, even though that today has had 10 o'clock written down as the start time, when I checked into the studio, it said that the show started at 9 and that something was already in process. So it was very weird. I haven't seen that problem in a really long time, and we're not in Mercury retrograde. So that's kind of been a new thing. So we're just kind of winging it and playing it by ear. Hopefully, everything will go according to plan and everything works out. So I wish us all the best. Now, Veretta, what is it that we need to know over the next week? What is it that we need to keep in mind?
Well, because of the time change last night, everybody's going to kind of be in flux. There seems to be a little bit of uneasy, unsettled, unknown components next week. Um, I would say the feeling is for a lot of people, take it with a grain of salt and just try to run through that or roll through those waves as they come. Don't make it a hill to die on, and just know that things are going to get a little easier. For others, it's going to be a little bit more spectacular in the uneasy awe, and they'll have to deal with things, or it'll be the beginning of things they have to deal with then either eventually or in an ongoing manner. I feel like there's a lot, the unsettled feelings has to do with a lot of what we don't know has been going on for quite some time, and now it's coming to climax. So this week may be a little unsettled for a lot of folks. And like I said, for a majority of those folks, just take it easy, let it go the way it needs to go, and don't grab on any one component that, irritates you and run with it until you derail yourself.
So is it kind of going back to that whole piece that we've been talking about lately? Just don't disengage with it, or just don't engage with it, just ignore it?
Yeah, some people won't be able to ignore it. They'll have to, ascertain what the damage is, what that means to them, what they'll have to do ongoing. But yes, most of this, it's just going to be, yeah, it's around us, it's happening, but it's not you. So don't participate.
Okay, all right, that makes sense then. So is there anything else that we sort of need to know this week, or are those just the main standouts? Because I mean, there's really sort of a lot going on from what it seems like. If there's this time change that happened last night, and then as I've mentioned previous conversations that we were in this very short, brief period where everything was moving forward last month. And now we're sort of out of that, and we're back to the way it used to be, where something is in retrograde like it always is. But last month was an opportunity where we could kind of get a mad dash running towards whatever goals or dreams that we were sort of working towards. Like for me, it was that I was going to get my Google Workspace issues finally worked out and fixed after like 6 or 8 months or something terrible like that. And it's really sort of ruined my life not having access to these files. So I was really doing great. And then it was like as soon as that planet went back into retrograde, I did not get it taken care of. I haven't fully resolved it yet. So it was just sort of frustrating where it's like, well, I'm back at square one again. This kind of sucks. I know I can do this again if I want to. I just don't feel like it. So that's sort of where I'm at.
Right.
That's sort of my thing right now, and I think that this might be your thing too. That thing that you're looking at, like maybe it's house cleaning, or something really basic, like running an errand or doing something like that. That just takes more time than what it's worth. You probably don't have that motivation anymore. That's probably sort of slipped by the wayside, or there's some new issue that's gotten in the way where um, you have to focus on those other things now because you just don't have it in you to work on that old narrative, that old story, that old piece. So I did have a question for you, Veretta. So, can illness ever be related to a curse?
A curse.
Right.
Well, it can't be created by a curse, but it most definitely can be exacerbated by one.
Because I think about,
So if you've got something going on, then what you have to look at is not that you have it going on, but why it's as bad as it is.
because I think about, like the occasional person, who comes out and they have something, some malady, like, let's say, I don't know, their arm hurts or something like that. And then suddenly that leads to, like some symptoms of, like internal bleeding, and then it just escalates, and it's like, now do I really have to deal with this other thing? Are you kidding me right now that my body's doing this to me? And it's just like one thing after another where you just keep falling apart, and it's not, like the fact that you're old or anything. It's just that you have bad luck, really, that all of this stuff keeps stacking up. I remember many years ago in my life that I sort of fell into something where I somebody that I knew was just getting sick, one thing after another. So then I said, well, why don't you talk to this, psychic healer person and see what they have to say about it? Because, maybe there's a reason why you're getting sick so, one after the other like this. And it was always bizarre, freaky, weird. So we ended up meeting with this person, and then they did this thing where, like, they said that there was this curse, and that they had to get rid of that, and then you were gonna feel so much better. And they described like how many, I guess, attachments that were on this person, and they would describe things in like all of these really abstract terms of how many zeros were attached to it. Like it was just that huge, and it got to the point where it was like they did what they were hired to do, which was to get rid of this malignant energy. And then the patient really did start feeling better at the end of the day and all of that. But then I think to myself, all right, but what if you don't believe in any of that, right? Like if a curse requires that you have to believe in something, that you acknowledge that this is a thing, that this can get out of hand, and that this becomes problematic for you. But, like then there's this whole subset of people out there in the world, like even me to a certain degree, that says, that's woo, that's a bunch of BS, that's just like people trying to milk money out of a situation. So when you have people who are just getting sick, like right and left, and then they see, a healer, a shaman, somebody along those lines, who says, oh, you have this curse, you have this malignant energy, and they say, well, you're full of it, because I don't buy into any of that. It just sort of lends to that question, like, is the illness really sort of psychosomatic? Because, like, if it keeps getting worse and worse like that, and it's just kind of coming out of nowhere, and there is no belief system attached to it, then is that really just a psychosomatic kind of thing that somebody's experiencing?
Well, okay, so first of all, everything that happens to us as far as our body is concerned is a byproduct of the choice we've made, the decision we've made, or a lifestyle that we've lived. It doesn't necessarily, as far as our body mean that there was a malignancy about it, but the fact is we did it to ourselves to some degree. Now, put that, bubble up that and put it aside. If you're coming from the perspective of, my daughter of 2 years old just, got diagnosed with cancer, you can't tell me it was something she did. Well, yeah, but it wasn't during this lifetime. It was something she set in motion before she ever come on board into the physical. Now, put that away for a minute. Let's go back to the other one. So when you're dealing with malady, it means your body has a propensity to break down in that area. Therefore, it's a weakness. It's a soft spot. It's someplace that it's a link, a weak link in your chain, that if someone were to throw ugly energy at you or wish ill will on you, that's the area that your body will suffer in regard to the energy that's thrown, because it's the weak link. And even though that individual doesn't have to know what your weak link is, versed enough in what they're trying to do, all they have to know is that you may have one, and then they can take it from there. When a shaman, a psychic healer, any individual that says to you, oh, you've got a curse, And for so many zeros of dollar value, I can take that away from you. That's BS right there. I have a hard time with people that will dupe others that are vulnerable because they don't know any different. Now, let's address that. They don't know any different. So if you say you don't believe in it, okay, you don't believe in it. But guess what? Beware, because whether you believe in it or not, it still can affect you. It's whether you believe in it to the point that you allow it to affect you that matters. I, a long time ago, was in the mindset of, I don't believe in any of that crap. It doesn't matter. It won't affect me. I'm sure that I'm okay from anything that may come my way. So I'm not going to even look in that direction. Well, then I get to a brick and mortar warehouse, if you will, of psychics, and I start to feel the energy, and my mindset starts to change. And the owner was very versed in black magic and knew how to throw it roughly. And I woke up one morning. I still was in that mindset. Okay, it doesn't matter. I don't know what that is, but I really don't care to know what that is because no harm, no fouls. I don't know. It won't bother me. I woke up one morning prior to going to work that day, probably just after sunset, and felt and heard in my mind her say, "Take that, you bastard." And I also felt and sensed that I was having urine thrown on me. And there was some incantation that went along with this. And I also felt at the same time her husband was joining in on this venture to increase the power. Okay, whoa, that in no way am I going to be okay with. So I pretty much protected myself, even though I was pretty new to the game at that point. I bubbled up and no, I don't care what you're trying to do. Why would you even do that? Your top psychic's bringing you in money, and I don't understand why you'd want to keep it at bay. Well, it was a control thing, but I learned then that what it was real. No, I wasn't going to let it affect me, but I knew it was real. And at all costs, I was going to prove her wrong. I just kept plugging away and working. Now, fast forward, same brick and mortar adventure, and I had become very good friends with an associate there at work, and he had very weak heart and lungs. And he was constantly trying to get rid of some malady, constantly, drinking ginger tea, trying to keep his throat from being so sore he couldn't work. Unfortunately, the man had no insurance and knew he had a bad heart, had also had heart surgery previously, but was being told he needed it again. So I had already gotten to the point where I was out of that brick and mortar adventure. I didn't need it anymore. Thank you very much. I had already built up a pretty good clientele base, so I didn't need the harassment from the owner, and I bailed. But I kept track of some of the people in there that I'd become friends with, including this gentleman.
90 seconds.
I had moved out of the valley, and one day I was coming back to visit, and I said, "Hey, dude, do you want to get some lunch or dinner?" And he said, "Sure." So we're sitting at dinner, and he says to me, "I really hope one day that I wake up or I don't wake up and I'm on an alien ship and I am looking back at the earth and I can say, good riddance, I don't need that anymore." And I'm like, "Whoa, are you ready to leave already?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Okay, well, not yet. I'd like you around a little longer.
60 seconds.
Get surgery done so we can know you're going to be okay." All right, fast forward 2 weeks, I get a phone call and from another associate, and she says, "Hey, did you hear about XYZ?" And I said, "No, what about him?" "He's dead." "What? No way." Well, the owner couldn't bring herself to have a service for him, so she asked me in a roundabout way to do that. So I stepped, or she asked someone else, and then someone else asked me. And so I stepped up and had the service, and as I'm mingling with some of the other folks that were there, they said to me, "Yeah, you know what? He was really worried about what she'd just done to him because she was really mad for whatever reason."
10 seconds.
Walked over to his table and put an amulet type charm on his table and said, I really hope your bad stuff goes away. And I'm like, no way. She did that to him? Well, yeah, she did because he was already sick. He already had some weak spots. She knew she could control him, and she did. And she took him the rest of the way out. So, whether you believe in it or not, it happens. Whether you believe it can affect you, it can. But the thing is if you don't allow whatever the adversity is into your space long enough to definitely control and affect you, you're going to be okay. But it's pretty profound when I hear somebody say, "Oh, a psychic told me I'm cursed." I don't go back to that psychic. First of all, a curse is nothing more than someone saying something about you that may or may not come true and in no way has to affect the quality of your life. Energy throwing is real. I don't care who you are, good or bad. Energy throwing is real. And that can be in the form of a curse, a protection, something that's around. I don't care what form it takes. The reality of it is if we continue to stay strong in our will and don't allow people to affect us to that, well, what if I don't know what's happening? You're going to get an inkling. Wake up and be aware of what's going on around you. You're going to get some kind of inkling, some kind of stuff is taking place. Put a bubble protection around you, buffer up, and don't let anything in, and be okay with your situation. Do not compound any negative that comes at you or anything that you feel might be stronger than you by saying, "Oh my God, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to be okay. I've got some bad thing on." You just made it happen. The fact that you're
Thank you for
allowing it
using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
We're still. Hello? Oh, okay. I got dumped. There's some real weirdness. We got dropped.